been in this park 6 years now. So this was never here. And somebody brought a tent in and it all snowballed from there.
You can't be in this spot. Police say you can't be here after 11, on the beach. You can't be here. Well, where are we gonna go then? I've paid taxes all my life since I was 16 years old. If there's not any help for us at all, everybody's got their story.
This February 7th, he was dead 1 year. He was deathly disabled. His throat collapsed. He died in the street.
Well, I got in a car wreck, I lost my job, then I lost my wife, and now I pay child support, so they take my driver's license away. Now I'm homeless because I can't afford to get a place.
This is Daily Homeless News, where tell the stories no one else will. Every year, more than 300,000 people from all over the United States come to Florida to retire, bringing with them the hope of a warm and peaceful old age. They dream of sunshine all year round, of leisurely afternoons on the beach, of a life without burdens. But there is one thing no one is mentally prepared to face. Today, when arriving in Florida, instead of enjoying restful years after a lifetime of hard work, many people still have to struggle to make a living at an age beyond their working capacity. Some even face a life of hunger, cold, and loneliness on the streets. That's right in the place praised as a retirement paradise. The lives of thousands are being worn down and quietly coming to an end. How can a state so famous for luxury condos, cruise ships, and beachfront golf courses also be the same place where thousands of elderly people sleep on sidewalks, in cars, or behind dumpsters? What went wrong in a system where you can work your whole life, pay taxes, raise a family, do everything right, and still end up with nothing? And the most disturbing question of all, if this can happen even to the most vulnerable, the elderly, those who have spent their entire lives contributing to the growth of this nation, then who among us is truly safe? Join us now to find out, and by the end, you might not see the world the same way again. Carolyn, 78, spent nearly 2 months living in her old car. She relies entirely on a small Social Security check, her ankles swollen from sitting up each night, and she gets by on just one small meal a day.
It can happen to anyone. Don't think it can't, because I never thought about it.
This is the face of homeless in America. And in Florida, the number of people living without a home is rapidly increasing, almost like an epidemic. According to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's 2023 Annual Homeless Assessment Report, Florida recorded 30,809 homeless individuals in a single night, ranking third nationally behind California and New York. Of these, 15,706 were unsheltered, exposed to the elements, crime, and despair. The daily reality for these individuals is a relentless battle for survival, each day more harrowing than the last. Imagine waking up without access to clean water, a safe place to sleep, or even a bathroom, where the most basic human needs are a distant dream. For the homeless in Florida, hunger is just one of the many threats they face. Violence lurks at every corner, with assaults a cruel reality, leaving women, children, and especially the elderly exposed and vulnerable. Nearly half of homeless women report escaping the horrors of domestic violence, only to find themselves trapped in another nightmare on the streets. Health problems, both physical and mental, amplify their suffering. According to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, 46% of homeless individuals battle mental illness or substance abuse, but getting help is a rare luxury. For the elderly homeless, these struggles are even more pronounced. The frailty of age makes it harder for them to fend off the dangers of the street. They often suffer from chronic illnesses like heart disease, diabetes, and arthritis, but lack the proper health care to manage them. Many older adults are unable to move freely, making them easy targets for violence, theft, or assault. The material deprivation and the helplessness in improving their living conditions make elderly people feel abandoned by society, losing their dignity. In addition, the fear of the dangers of living on the streets makes them prone to depression and susceptible to mental health issues. Homeless support services are not always easily accessible, especially for the elderly who may not even know where to seek assistance. In Florida's urban centers, like Miami and Tampa, makeshift camps are scattered across the city, only to be torn down by authorities enforcing laws that seem to ignore the humanity of those who are suffering. These aren't just numbers or statistics. They are the stories of real people, especially older adults, whose dignity has been stripped away by a system that has abandoned them. We deserve to reap the rewards of our hard work and efforts, not to struggle on the streets, begging for the basic rights we are entitled to. Looking ahead, the outlook is grim. Without significant intervention, experts predict the homeless population in Florida could rise by 10 to 20% by 2030, driven by skyrocketing housing costs and population growth. Florida's population is projected to increase by 3.2 million by 2030, demanding an additional 570,000 housing units, most of which will be unaffordable for low-income families. This crisis is not confined to urban slums. It's creeping into suburbs and rural areas, making homeless in America a pervasive threat. The danger is real. A single job loss, a medical emergency, or a natural disaster could push even the stable into the abyss. This is no longer just the problem of the homeless. This is a problem that belongs to all of us. When thousands of people in a so-called paradise can't even find a roof to sleep under at night, then none of us are truly safe. Who will be the next one among us? Our friends, our family, or even ourselves? The homeless crisis in Florida reveals a chilling truth: no one is immune. While poverty is the primary driver, Florida's poverty rate stands at 12.3% to 12.7%, affecting 2.76 million people. The risk extends far beyond the destitute. The elderly, scraping by on fixed pensions, are increasingly vulnerable.
For the first time tonight, just over half of the homeless people were seniors who can no longer afford rent, and they're now living without a shelter. And as West News' Michelle Merritt reports, it's really impacting women 65 and older who have been hit the hardest.
With housing costs soaring, a Social Security check of $1,500 a month barely covers rent in cities like Miami, where the median rent exceeds $2,000. 1 in 4 homeless households includes someone over 55. Their savings depleted by medical bills or unexpected crises. Imagine working your entire life, only to find yourself sleeping in a park because your pension can't keep up with inflation. Low and middle income workers are equally at risk. In Florida, 82% of low-income households spend over half their income on rent, leaving them one missed paycheck away from eviction. Even those working 2 jobs, think of the server hustling at a diner and driving for a rideshare app, struggle to afford basic housing. The median home price in Florida is $390,856, 10% above the national average, making homeownership a distant dream. But it's not just the poor. The middle class is teetering on the edge. A single financial shock, a car repair, a hospital stay can spiral into homelessness. This crisis is not a distant threat. It's a creeping danger that could touch anyone. The homeless in America, particularly in Florida, are not just others. They're our neighbors, our coworkers, our grandparents. The herd mentality that assumes it won't happen to me blinds us to the reality. The line between stability and homelessness is fragile, and it's getting thinner every day. So, what forces are pushing more and more people into the streets, shattering the illusion of safety we all cling to? The answers might shock you, and they are closer to home than you think. The stereotype that homelessness in America is a result of laziness or addiction is not only misleading, but also an oversimplification that fails to address the deeper, more intricate realities. While it's true that 38% of homeless individuals in Florida struggle with alcohol dependency and 26% with drug addiction, these issues are often symptoms rather than root causes. The true driving forces behind homelessness are a toxic combination of economic inequality, rising living costs, and systemic failures that trap people in an endless cycle of poverty and despair. Florida presents a stark paradox. It is a state with a booming economy and a relatively low unemployment rate of 3.3%. Yet it is also plagued by low-wage jobs and unaffordable housing. Over the past 5 years, the median home price has surged by 80%. While rents have increased at a rate that far exceeds wage growth. For many low-income families, the cost of housing consumes more than half of their income, leaving them with little to cover basic necessities such as food, health care, or unforeseen expenses. As inflation continues to climb in 2025, the purchasing power of Floridians is further eroded. Stagnant wages, particularly in service industries, make it nearly impossible for workers to escape this financial trap. According to the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, Florida is short by 435,879 affordable homes for low-income renters. This massive gap forces thousands into homelessness, as they have no access to safe, affordable housing. The social factors contributing to this crisis only add to the complexity. Mental health issues and substance abuse are prevalent among the homeless population, but Florida's mental health system remains severely underfunded, leaving nearly half of homeless individuals, 46%, without the care they desperately need. Domestic violence is another driving factor, particularly for women and children who are often forced to flee abusive situations and find themselves with nowhere to go. With no shelter options that offer both safety and stability, many women and children are left to fend for themselves on the streets. Racial disparities further exacerbate the problem, with Black households in Florida earning an average of $41,416 compared to $59,004 for white households. These systemic inequities create barriers that prevent many people of color from accessing stable housing. Additionally, Florida's frequent natural disasters, like hurricanes, displace thousands of residents every year, with low-income communities bearing the brunt of the damage. Politically, the situation is made worse by policies that do little to address the root causes of homelessness. Florida's refusal to expand Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act has left many low-income residents without health care, making them vulnerable to financial ruin in the face of medical emergencies. Laws that criminalize public camping, such as the 2024 statute in Florida, only deepen the problem by targeting the homeless rather than offering solutions. These laws force people into even more precarious situations, criminalizing their existence instead of addressing the systemic issues that put them on the streets. While some argue that these laws are necessary to maintain public order, others view them as heartless, dehumanizing measures that prioritize appearances over real solutions. Homelessness in Florida and across the country is not merely a personal failing of those affected. It is the result of a broken system where a combination of economic, social, and political forces collide to push vulnerable individuals to the brink. The failure to address these interconnected issues ensures that homelessness continues to grow, affecting more and more people every day. The time to address the root causes is now, because until these systems change, the cycle of homelessness will only continue to expand. But is it inevitable, or are we choosing to let this crisis fester? The state of Florida has certainly not overlooked the homeless crisis, but its efforts are a mix of advancements and shortcomings. Programs like the Housing Choice Voucher and Rapid Rehousing offer vital support in the form of rental assistance and temporary housing, aiding thousands in regaining stability. Between 2010 and 2023, Florida added 4,309 rapid rehousing beds and 4,246 permanent supportive housing beds, which contributed to a significant 30% reduction in homelessness since 2007. Additionally, FEMA provides emergency relief for renters impacted by disasters, and some local initiatives have dedicated resources to mental health and addiction services. While these measures show progress, they are merely small steps in addressing a much larger issue. Florida's annual spending on homelessness, totaling hundreds of millions, raises important concerns about efficiency. It costs $31,000 annually to manage homelessness for one person on the streets, yet it only costs $10,051 to provide permanent supportive housing. Given these stark differences, one must question why the state's budget tends to focus on reactive measures rather than proactive solutions. Critics argue that funds are being poorly allocated, with a significant portion directed toward temporary shelters rather than long-term housing options. The implementation of the 2024 public camping ban, for instance, has ignited a fierce debate. Proponents of the ban argue that it helps clean up cities, but opponents contend that it criminalizes homelessness, pushing individuals into jails or hiding them from view without addressing the root causes of their situation. One of the most controversial issues remains Florida's refusal to expand Medicaid. By denying health care access to low-income residents, the state leaves countless individuals at risk of accumulating medical debt, which is a major driver of homelessness. Political divides continue to hinder progress, as some lawmakers prioritize punitive approaches rather than seeking comprehensive systemic reforms. The real question is whether the government is genuinely addressing the homelessness crisis or simply managing the appearance of progress while the problem continues to grow. The question lingers, is the government doing enough, or is it merely managing the optics of a growing crisis? What would it take to truly break the cycle? Florida's social safety net is a lifeline for some, but for many, it's a frayed rope. The 2024 public camping ban, while aimed at urban order, has drawn criticism for its lack of empathy, forcing the homeless into overcrowded shelters or jail cells. Housing programs like the Housing Choice Voucher are underfunded, serving only a fraction of those in need. FEMA's disaster relief helps renters recover from hurricanes, but it's a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. Mental health and addiction services, critical for 46% of the homeless population, remain woefully underfunded, leaving thousands without care. The biggest gap is Florida's refusal to expand Medicaid, which could provide health care to low-income residents and prevent medical bankruptcies. Without it, a single hospital bill can push a family onto the streets. Policies protecting renters, such as eviction moratoriums or rent control, are limited, leaving tenants vulnerable to landlords capitalizing on Florida's housing boom. To solve this, Florida needs bold action, massive investment in affordable housing, Medicaid expansion, and preventive measures like emergency rent assistance. Community-based solutions, mental health clinics, job training, and domestic violence shelters could address root causes. Are we ready to demand change, or will we let bureaucracy and division keep us stuck? The future of Florida, hope or despair? The future of homelessness in America, and more specifically in Florida, is uncertain and at a critical juncture. If left unaddressed, the crisis could worsen, with projections indicating a 10 to 20% rise in homelessness by 2030. Factors such as population growth, escalating housing prices, and climate-related disasters are on track to drive more people, particularly the elderly, low-wage workers, and families, onto the streets. However, there is still hope. Florida's remarkable 30% reduction in homelessness from 2007 to 2023 demonstrates that meaningful change is possible when sustained efforts are made. By expanding permanent supportive housing, increasing Medicaid access, and prioritizing preventative measures, we could reverse the current trend. Individuals can protect themselves by planning ahead financially and taking advantage of programs like SNAP or FEMA assistance. Communities can step up by volunteering, donating, or advocating for stronger policy reforms. Government action is essential in this fight. Investing in housing and support services is far more effective than relying on punitive measures. If these steps are not taken, Florida could face a future where tent cities become more common and the dream of stability slips further out of reach. So, what future will we choose for Florida? Will it be a state defined by opportunity and compassion, or one where despair becomes a dominant force, claiming the lives of more and more individuals? The homelessness crisis in America, particularly evident in Florida, serves as a harsh reflection of the failings within our society. It highlights the injustice of a system that allows wealth to soar while millions are left to struggle, where a home becomes a privilege, not a basic human right. It forces us to question our compassion. Do we view the homeless as human beings with stories, mothers, veterans, elderly individuals, or do we dismiss them as problems to be discarded? This crisis demands our attention, urging us to confront the underlying economic, social, and political structures that allow this suffering to persist. This is not just a Florida issue, it's a national one. It's time for us to push for affordable housing, stronger social safety nets, and policies that prioritize the well-being of people over profits. We must reflect, what does this situation mean for us as a society? We all have a role to play, whether through volunteering, advocating for change, or simply listening to the stories of those experiencing homelessness. Together, we have the power to create a Florida and a country where no one is forced to survive on the streets. Will you stay silent, or will you take action to end this crisis? The decision is ours. This is Daily Homeless News, where tell the stories no one else will. Florida. The land of white sand beaches, luxury high-rises, and million-dollar vacations. But behind the palm trees and tourist postcards lies a far more painful reality. One that doesn't make it into the brochures or press releases. It's a crisis brewing quietly and cruelly in the shadows, homelessness. Today, let's uncover the true face of the homelessness crisis hidden behind Florida's glamorous facade. If you find value in shedding light on stories like these, please hit that subscribe button and join our growing community. Your support helps us continue exploring critical issues such as homelessness, economic disparity, and social justice. Together, we can amplify voices that need to be heard and inspire meaningful action. Don't forget to like, comment, and share your thoughts below. We'd love to hear what you think about the challenges faced by those homeless in America. In 2023, Florida recorded 30,809 people experiencing homelessness. By 2024, that figure rose to 31,362, a troubling increase underscoring an escalating crisis. Over 31,000 individuals are caught in a cycle of instability, struggling daily just to survive. Yet official narratives often portray these shifts as signs of progress. But beneath the surface, the reality tells a different story. Shelter availability has notably declined, with access to temporary beds shrinking by more than 5% over the past year. Simultaneously, the number of unsheltered individuals, those forced to sleep outdoors, has surged by nearly 10%. These figures aren't random fluctuations. They are direct outcomes of policy choices aimed more at obscuring the issue than addressing its root causes. Florida, renowned as the Sunshine State, casts shadows of hardship on those unable to afford its rising cost of living. Contrary to misconceptions, homelessness in America isn't a lifestyle choice. It emerges when rents spike suddenly, wages stagnate, illness strikes unexpectedly, or someone flees domestic abuse with nowhere safe to land. It's a symptom of a broader systemic failure, one that punishes vulnerability rather than providing support. This crisis didn't appear overnight. It was shaped by decades of housing neglect, inadequate mental health services, and the mistaken assumption that private charities could shoulder responsibilities abandoned by political leaders. Today, Florida faces not just a statistical increase, but a moral crisis. Lives are impacted by policies that criminalize public sleeping without offering viable alternatives. Press conferences and political statements often gloss over this harsh reality, presenting superficial solutions while the fundamental problems persist. The critical question now is clear. How severe must the situation become before decisive action replaces empty rhetoric? How many more must endure hardship on Florida streets before we collectively acknowledge that the system is failing and commit to meaningful change? The state doesn't need more promises. It needs action now. Florida's approach to social welfare is less a net and more a sieve. For a state that wears limited government like a badge of honor and champions the idea of rugged individualism, the message is clear. If you fall, don't expect a hand to help you up. There's no cushion, only concrete. In 2024, Governor Ron DeSantis approved HB 1365, a law that on its face claims to restore public order by prohibiting individuals from sleeping, resting, or setting up camp in parks, on sidewalks, or even on Florida's public beaches. But let's call it what it is, a crackdown on homelessness disguised as a public safety policy. The bill doesn't offer protection, it imposes punishment. It makes it possible for private citizens and business owners to sue city governments if they don't enforce the ban. It doesn't just criminalize poverty. It turns it into a legal liability.
The cops give us no rest. I mean, we can't even sleep at the park anymore because it's against the health department code to camp. I mean, even if we sleep here, we get ticketed. You know, there was one night I couldn't even get a full hour of sleep because I was getting woken up by cops and told to go from place to place. And I would just go and lay down and be woken up an hour later go lay down another place and get woken up. I mean, I had like 5 tickets that night.
Even worse, this legislation mandates that municipalities provide alternative encampments or shelters, but gives them no significant funding, no infrastructure support, no concrete direction. Local governments are left scrambling, improvising, stretching already thin resources. Some counties might erect makeshift tent zones. Others might rely on underfunded nonprofits or just push people out of sight. Fragmented systems, inconsistent responses, and vulnerable people forced deeper into the shadows, onto riverbanks, wooded areas, or abandoned lots far from help, visibility, or safety. HB 1365 isn't about fixing homelessness. It's about erasing it from view. It gives the illusion of action without addressing the roots of the crisis. It's the kind of policy that looks decisive in a press release but disintegrates the moment it meets the complexity of human suffering. Let's be honest, this is not governance. It's negligence dressed up as order. Homelessness isn't just a personal tragedy, it's a full-blown public emergency that affects every part of a community. When people don't have stable housing, the consequences ripple far beyond the individuals living on the streets. Hospitals end up overwhelmed with health issues that could have been prevented with basic shelter and hygiene. Law enforcement becomes the default crisis responder, using valuable resources to deal with nonviolent incidents rooted in poverty, mental illness, or addiction. Meanwhile, neighborhoods become tense and divided as frustration and fear replace compassion and empathy. This isn't just speculation. It's the lived reality in cities and towns across Florida. What few officials are willing to say out loud is this: it's more costly to criminalize homelessness than it is to solve it. Decades of research have confirmed it. Arrests, emergency room visits, jail time, court proceedings, and constant displacement add up, not just in dollars, but in social decay. In contrast, permanent supportive housing programs, especially those based on the Housing First model, consistently show better results for less money. Yet Florida continues to throw money at temporary fixes. Millions are poured into policing encampments, enforcing anti-camping ordinances, and shuffling people from one place to another without ever addressing the root causes. These efforts may satisfy political talking points, but they don't solve the crisis. They simply push it out of sight until it resurfaces in another neighborhood, another news cycle, another statistic. Now ask yourself this: what would it look like if we used that same money to provide real housing, comprehensive treatment, and proactive prevention? What if those funds were invested in transitional housing, mental health care, job training, or rental assistance programs that actually move people out of homelessness instead of trapping them in it? These aren't just hypothetical questions. They point to a path forward, a path that prioritizes people over optics, solutions over sound bites. It's time to stop managing homelessness like it's a nuisance to be hidden. It's a policy failure that can be corrected if the will exists. Florida's homelessness crisis is not spread evenly. It's concentrated in some of the most developed, most economically powerful parts of the state, an irony that cuts deep. Miami-Dade leads the state with over 4,200 homeless individuals as of 2024. Here, luxury condos tower over encampments hidden beneath highway overpasses. In a city known for billion-dollar real estate, thousands of residents sleep on concrete. If that doesn't make you pause, ask yourself what kind of prosperity tolerates this level of disparity. In Orange County, home to Orlando, Disney World, and countless tourist attractions, nearly 3,000 people are unhoused. Meanwhile, hotel rooms go vacant, and private rentals sit empty, priced far out of reach for working families. Hillsborough County, Broward, and Palm Beach aren't far behind. The crisis is statewide, and it's growing. Housing costs are skyrocketing. Wages are not. And the state's answer? More rules about where people can and cannot sleep, while doing next to nothing to help them find a place to live. This crisis didn't erupt overnight. Florida's homelessness disaster has been decades in the making, a slow-burning tragedy fueled by political complacency and an unshakable obsession with the free market. While glossy development brochures boast luxury condos and booming real estate markets, the truth on the ground tells a very different story. At the heart of the issue lies a brutal and growing shortage of affordable housing. Across Florida, there are just 34 affordable and available rental units for every 100 extremely low-income renter households. That means nearly 2/3 of the people who need affordable housing the most are left stranded, competing for limited space or forced into impossible choices. Many end up on couches, in cars, or out on the street. The rental market has turned ruthless. In cities like Miami, Tampa, and Orlando, rents have surged to unbearable levels, rising faster than wages can keep up. Entire working-class communities are being priced out of neighborhoods they've called home for generations. Even folks with decent jobs are struggling. So when a low-income family is hit with an unexpected car repair bill, a missed shift, or a trip to the ER, there's often nothing left in the tank. That's all it takes to go from surviving to homeless. On top of the economic pressure, Florida faces something most states don't experience at the same level: devastating natural disasters. Hurricanes, flooding, and violent storms strike with growing frequency and intensity, wiping out already precarious housing for families living on the edge. After Hurricane Ian, the spike in homelessness wasn't gradual, it was immediate and brutal. And what followed? Not nearly enough. Long-term housing recovery plans were either inadequate or absent altogether, leaving thousands scrambling to rebuild their lives on their own. Then there's the health crisis, which Florida's policies continue to ignore. Nearly 30% of the state's homeless population is battling serious mental health disorders or substance addiction. But instead of treatment, they get ticketed, arrested, or brushed aside like a public nuisance. There's no real safety net, just a revolving door between the street, the EAR, and jail. This is the deeper reality behind homelessness in America. It's not just tents on sidewalks or tarps under overpasses. It's about systemic neglect. It's about policies that favor developers over communities, punishment over healing, and short-term image over long-term impact. Every person living unsheltered in Florida today is a testament to decisions made or not made by people in power. And unless that changes, the numbers will only get worse. Florida lawmakers love to talk tough on cleaning up the streets. In 2024, they passed HB 1365, a law that bans public camping and allows private citizens to sue local governments that don't enforce the ban. The law was championed as a way to restore order and protect public space. But in reality, it's another blow to people already struggling to survive. Cities and counties are scrambling to comply with the law, but they've been given little to no support. No blueprint, no money, just mandates. Miami-Dade and Orange County officials have already voiced concerns that they simply don't have enough shelter beds to comply. And even if more shelters are created, that's not a long-term solution. Shelters are temporary. What Florida needs is permanent, affordable, supportive housing and policies that prevent people from falling into homelessness in the first place. The state's current approach is like mopping up a flood with a paper towel. It doesn't fix the leak, it just pushes the water around. If Florida is going to make real progress on homelessness, we have to stop playing around the edges and get to the root: housing. Not more high-end condos or vacation rentals snapped up by out-of-state investors. We need affordable, stable homes for everyday people who live and work here. That starts with statewide investments in deeply affordable housing. Not just units priced below market, but truly accessible to those earning the least. We also need rental assistance and strong eviction prevention programs so people don't fall into homelessness in the first place. Mental health and substance abuse services must be expanded and made easier to access. Add to that job training, legal help, and housing support for those trying to rebuild after losing everything. But perhaps the most important step is rewriting the narrative. Homelessness isn't about bad choices or broken people, it's about broken systems. We know it works. Housing First programs have cut chronic homelessness by as much as 80% in some cities. These models provide homes without conditions, then follow up with support services. They're more compassionate, more effective, and in the long run, cheaper. But they require leadership. They require vision. Unfortunately, Florida's leaders have shown little interest in either. This isn't just a Florida issue. And it's not something confined to big cities, it's a nationwide crisis. The Homeless in America crisis. And we can't afford to keep waiting for lawmakers to suddenly grow a conscience. Real change has always come from the ground up, driven by people who refuse to look away. That's where you come in. You can support local organizations that are doing the hard, often invisible work every single day. You can speak out in favor of affordable housing in your community and challenge harmful policies and rhetoric that target the homeless. Whether it's volunteering, donating, or simply standing up and saying, "This isn't right," your voice matters. Because silence isn't neutral, it's a decision. And when we stay quiet, we allow suffering to go unnoticed. But when we speak up, we give those living on the margins a chance to be heard, to be seen, and to be treated with the dignity every human deserves. Florida is a state known for its sunshine. But what good is all that sunlight if it only shines on the lucky few? Homelessness is not inevitable. It's not natural. It's the result of decisions about funding, about priorities, about who gets to belong and who gets pushed out. So if this story moved you, if it made you angry, sad, frustrated, or just aware, don't scroll past. Leave a comment below. Share this video. Subscribe on Daily Homeless News. Because this isn't just content, it's a cry for help. Let's remind everyone watching that homeless in America is a crisis we can no longer ignore. This is Daily Homeless News, where tell the stories no one else will. 89% of people are unaware of this. New York City, ranked #1 in the world for its economy in the Global Cities Index, is also leading the country in homelessness, with the highest number of homeless individuals in the United States.
So how long have you been homeless?
35 years.
Trying to keep, my head on my shoulders, especially when, I was being, raised in poverty of where I was at. But at the end of the day, I try to keep my head up.
It's easy to get food. It's easy for me to find places to sleep even in the wintertime on the sidewalks behind cars and stuff like that, where they can't see you, where the visibility is down.
In January 2024, 134 people experienced homelessness in New York City, nearly twice as many as anywhere else. In a city like New York, with a booming economy worth over $1 trillion, does that really make sense? Today, let's peel back the layers of what seems absurd in the heart of the Big Apple to uncover the harsh reality lurking beneath the glittering lights and skyscrapers. If you're ready to face the truth about those left behind in this relentless economic race and want to understand what's truly happening in cities that seem perfect from the outside, hit like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any of our eye-opening explorations. This isn't just another news or entertainment channel, it's a wake-up call. Every city, even the wealthiest ones, has its hidden struggles. Long gone are the days in America when a single paycheck was enough to support a family, pay the rent, raise children, and build a decent future. Today, if you drive through New York, beyond the bustling streets and the glittering city centers, you'll see a cold, bleak reality in total contrast. In a place that's always been praised as the land of dreams, anyone can become homeless after just 3 unpaid bills. And that is fully proven based on the real situation.
Well, how long have you been homeless?
I've been homeless since 1999 on and off.
I survived the cold by going alone, staying by myself, and finding my spots.
The homelessness crisis in New York City stands as a stark contradiction to the city's image of opportunity. In January 2024, 134 individuals were homeless in NYC, making up nearly 24% of the national homeless population. This represents a shocking 53.1% increase from 2023, far exceeding the national average of 18%. On any given night, over 110,000 people, including children and recent migrants, sleep in city shelters, while an estimated 200,000 more live in hidden homelessness, couch surfing, or staying with others. The true scale of the crisis is likely much higher, with many evading official accounts by hiding in subways, parks, or abandoned buildings. It is estimated that more than 350,000 people will be homeless in New York City by March 2025. The daily reality for the roughly 4,140 unsheltered individuals is devastating, exposed to extreme weather, violence, and hunger. Tragic 2025 incident where a homeless person was fatally crushed in a dumpster underscored the deadly risks they face. Shelters, though intended as a refuge, are overcrowded, unsafe, and unsanitary, often leaving many to choose the streets. The life expectancy of a homeless New Yorker is 30 years less than the average, highlighting the brutal toll of living on the margins. This crisis isn't confined to a few neighborhoods. It's spreading across the entire city. In 2024, 146,000 students experienced homelessness, with the Bronx seeing 1 in 6 children without a stable home. As housing costs continue to rise, experts predict a 20–30% increase in homelessness by 2030 as more low-income households struggle to keep up with skyrocketing rent. With the line between stability and homelessness razor thin, the question remains, could any of us be one paycheck away from joining them? The face of homelessness in New York City is diverse, but certain groups are particularly vulnerable, trapped by systemic failures and economic hardship. Older adults, especially those living on fixed pensions, are at significant risk. Around 20% of NYC's homeless population is over 50, with many surviving on Social Security or pensions of $1,200, $2,000 a month, far below the median rent of $4,395 in Manhattan. A single unexpected expense like a medical bill can push them into homelessness. Low and middle income workers are also at risk. In NYC, 86% of households earning under $25,000 spend over half their income on rent, while 54% of renters pay at least 30%. Despite working multiple jobs, many still face eviction due to unexpected costs. For many, the myth that hard work guarantees stability is shattered. People of color face heightened risks due to systemic inequities. Black New Yorkers, who make up 24% of the population, represent 56% of shelter residents. Hispanic/Latinx individuals, 29% of the population, comprise 32%. Additionally, recent migrants and asylum seekers, who make up 37% of shelter residents, face language barriers and uncertain legal status, making them more vulnerable. Mental health and substance use disorders are prevalent among the homeless, with 43.7% of shelter residents facing disabilities that require specialized support. LGBTQ+ youth and victims of domestic violence also make up a significant portion of the homeless population, facing unique challenges. Economic instability, including a rising unemployment rate of 5.2% in 2024, and inflation is worsening the situation, pushing even employed individuals and families to the brink. Homelessness is no longer just a problem for the destitute, it's increasingly affecting workers, seniors, and families. How close are we to losing our own homes? The homelessness crisis in New York City is a product of a deeply ingrained web of economic, social, and political failures. Far from being the result of individual shortcomings, this crisis is a complex outcome of systemic forces that have trapped thousands in a cycle of poverty and displacement. The portrayal of homeless individuals as lazy or addicted is not only misleading but dangerous. In reality, it's the combination, rising living costs, stagnant wages, and political neglect that has led to a worsening situation with no easy way out. Economically, New York City has seen skyrocketing housing costs, particularly in the past few years. The median rent in the city surged by 33% between 2019 and 23, with Manhattan's average rent hitting a staggering $4,395 per month. This, in combination with a shortage of affordable housing, has left many people unable to find stable homes. Between 1996 and 2017, the city lost over 1.1 million affordable housing units, and as of 2023, the vacancy rate for low-cost rentals, those under $1,000 a month, is a meager 0.39%. As a result, many low-income households are being priced out, further exacerbating the problem. The city's demand for housing is sky high, driven in part by its ranking as the third most attractive city globally, according to Time Out's 2025 list. 78% of its residents labeling it as exciting. While the city's booming economy and thriving cultural scene attract people from all over the world, they also fuel a fierce competition for limited housing, pushing prices to new extremes. In the face of these overwhelming forces, affordable housing options are dwindling. Approximately 26,310 rent stability apartments and nearly 5,000 NYCHA public housing units sit vacant because of high repair costs and rent regulations under the 2019 Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act. Landlords often warehouse these units, waiting for the chance to charge higher market-driven rates, thus keeping the most vulnerable locked out of the rental market. At the same time, NYC's minimum wage of $15 an hour remains insufficient to cover basic living costs, particularly rent. Despite working, 40–60% of homeless individuals in the city are employed but still unable to afford a place to live. The economic pressure doesn't stop at housing costs. The implementation of tariffs on imported goods has further exacerbated the cost of living in NYC. Economists argue that these tariffs have driven up the prices of consumer goods, including food, cars, and building materials. According to the Congressional Budget Office, these tariffs are estimated to increase the average cost of living for American households by $1,277, a burden felt most acutely by low-income families in NYC. As inflation continues to rise, it puts additional pressure on the already strained budgets of those living on the edge, making it more difficult for them to pay for basic necessities, let alone rent. Compounding these economic struggles are social factors like mental health issues and domestic violence. Studies show that 75% of individuals in homeless shelters suffer from serious mental health conditions. Yet the city's mental health system is overwhelmed with long wait lists for treatment. The legacy of deinstitutionalization in the 1,960S, coupled with inadequate community care, has left many without the support they need. Domestic violence is another driving force behind homelessness, particularly for women and children who are often forced to flee dangerous situations with nowhere else to go. Politically, the situation has worsened over the past few years. The end of COVID-19 eviction moratoriums in 2022 resulted in the eviction of 4,400 households that year, increasing the ranks of the homeless. Federal and state funding for affordable housing has steadily decreased, with the budget for HUD's homeless programs falling short of what is needed to address the growing crisis. Meanwhile, the city's shelter system, despite being extensive, operates well beyond capacity, and bureaucratic delays in housing programs like Section 8 leave many families stuck on waiting lists for years. In a city with a booming economy such as New York, This crisis is not only an economic failure, but a glaring sign of inequality. The soaring cost of living and lack of affordable housing options trap thousands of people in the streets, while the city continues to grow, attracting wealth and talent. This inequality is evident in the fact that NYC's low-income families are spending more than half of their incomes on rent, making them one missed paycheck away from eviction. Yet, as the city climbs to new economic heights, its most vulnerable residents continue to be left behind. What does it say about a city that allows this to happen in plain sight, while its skyscrapers rise higher and higher? NYC's social safety net, while extensive, is riddled with gaps that fail to stem the tide of homelessness. But the city's right to shelter policy, enacted in 1981, is a cornerstone, ensuring that 97% of homeless individuals have a place to sleep. Far better than cities like Los Angeles, where only 30% are sheltered. In 2025, this policy supports 110,642 people nightly in over 200 shelters, including repurposed hotels and offices. Yet the system is buckling under its own weight, with shelters often described as unsafe, unsanitary, and dehumanizing. The CityFAP's voucher program, expanded in 2023, offers rent subsidies to prevent evictions and help families move to permanent housing. By aligning voucher values with market rates and easing eligibility, it has helped 18,500 households transition out of shelters since 2022. However, 10,000 eligible households can't use vouchers due to a shortage of accepting landlords and bureaucratic hurdles. The local law 19 mandates that 15% of new subsidized housing be reserved for the homeless, yielding 1,552 units in 2021, but only 493 were outside supportive housing, far from meeting demand. At the state level, Governor Kathy Hochul's $25 billion five-year housing plan aims to create or preserve 100,000 affordable units, but progress is slow and transparency is lacking. The 485X program, proposed to replace the expired 421A tax incentive, seeks to spur affordable housing development, but faces resistance from developers wary of costs. Federally, HUD's $3.633 billion for homeless programs in 2023 is a drop in the bucket compared to the 6.3 million affordable housing unit shortage nationwide. These policies have strengths. NYC's shelter system is unmatched. Programs like CityFAP's show promise, but they fall short due to underfunding, bureaucratic inefficiencies, and a focus on temporary fixes over permanent solutions. For instance, the city spends $180 per night on shelters and $383 per night on hotel rooms for the homeless, compared to just $72 per night for permanent housing via city HEPs. A clear misallocation of resources. Why are we pouring billions into stopgap measures while families languish in limbo? The government's response to homelessness in New York City is marked by a mix of ambitious plans and frustrating results. Mayor Eric Adams has launched several initiatives, such as the Subway Safety Plan, which added outreach workers and 1,000 safe haven beds, helping move thousands into shelters and permanent housing. However, only 3 out of 2,308 people contacted during homeless encampment sweeps were linked to permanent housing, indicating a focus on displacement rather than lasting solutions. The City of Yes for Housing Opportunity Plan aims to build 80,000 new housing units, but it lacks a mandate for truly affordable housing leaving low-income residents vulnerable.